Hi, today we're going to be talking about functions in functions. This is basically the concept of using an existing function in a different function. All right. So in programming, we have a concept of DRY, which means do not repeat yourself or don't repeat yourself. So this means that when you write logic, you want to maximize the reuse of that logic. So you don't want to have to write every single function over and over again. You might want to make your functions reusable and then use said functions, together or in mix and match scenarios across your applications. All right. So we're going to use a very simple implementation of this just to demo out this feature and just to let you know how to use it within the platform. So I currently have my tutorial demo function, and this function is connected to an API, my tutorial API or my Hello World tutorial endpoint. If I ping it, I get nothing because the function has nothing. I'm going to create a new function. I'm just going to call this function return number. All right. And this function returns a number. This function, simple workflow. I'm just going to call this workflow logic. At one step, what we're going to do is that we're just going to return 5. We're going to return the number 5, save, deploy, and that's it. I'm going to go back to my functions. I'm going to go back to my tutorial demo function. I'm going to add a step. And what we're going to do here is that we are going to, let's see, I'm going to return, let's see, 5. Well, let's say, just say the number 6. And we are going to multiply that by, we're going to reference the function that we just wrote, which is return number. That's it. So we're going to do 5 times the function return number. Now, return number, you expect this function to uh, to let's see, return 5. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to the config. I'm going to deploy, and then I'm going to ping Postman. So I expect to have 25. All right. Internal server error. That's fine. And this is because we're returning a number, and the underlying infrastructure is Node.js. So with Node.js, when your API is returning a number, the system is going to assume that that is a response code. All right. So we want to change that. So let's see. All right. Let's remove this. Let's remove this first. Let's remove this. Let's change this to an object. I'm going to just say response. I'm going to say 5. Multiply by our function return number. Right? I'm going to fix this to number 5, not string 5. All right. I'm going to save, deploy. All right. So we have 25. So that's pretty straightforward. So we have a function, the function returns 5, and we multiply by 5. All right, that's great. So let's make this maybe somewhat more complex. So let's go back to our return number function. And we are going to create a parameter, and we're going to call this parameter number to return. Right? This is the number to return. And it's going to be a number type with a default of 0. I'm going to add this. I'm going to save. I am going to deploy. Okay. I'm going to go back to my tutorial demo function. Go back into my step. Now we're going to see that the argument option pops in, right? So this means that I can now, since my function has user set parameters, I can now set those parameters myself. So I actually created a parameter, but we never used it within that function. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go back into that function, go into my logic. I'm just going to return. I'm going to return that parameter. So I'm going to return number to return. Okay. So basically, the idea is that a user is going to pass in the number, and I'm going to return that number. Straightforward. Save this, deploy, go back to my tutorial demo function, and I am going to pass in, let's see, 30 as the number. Going to save. So I expect 5 times 30, right? And I'm going to deploy this. Come into Postman. All right, that's 150. All right. So we've seen how we easily just reference function. We could do this to the nth degree. We could just keep on, we could basically use function references across the board, right? I can even do it here. I could change the response to a function and use the same thing. I'm going to say return number, pass in an argument of 40. Save. All right. So we're basically just saying 40, and it's going to be 150 over here. It's pretty straightforward, right? So basically, I just did all this to say that, wherever you see a script user interface, right, and you have the option to use a function, you could always reference a function inline. And the beauty of this is that you can also do some cool things. So you can add a method on a function. So if I wanted to say, um, let's say, uh, so we're going to get back a number here, and let's say we wanted to raise that number by 2. So I'm going to say pow. I'm going to raise by 2. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm saying 5 times whatever this responds to, which is the function. I'm going to add, I'm going to raise this by 2. So, this is just to say that the functions, right, are basically can be used the same way any other script user interface response can be used, right? Uh, you can add methods to the function. You can manipulate the response of that function. You can do whatever you want. It's a free for all, right? There you have it. 4,500. All right. So this is the first way uh, to reference functions. Now, there's a different use case. So in this use case, we wanted the function, we wanted to use the function within our logic, right? Now, there could be different cases where, let's say you had a wrapper function. So let's say you had a function that maybe you wanted to use that function to call out other functions, right? Maybe a user clicks a button and then you want to maybe extract some data and send the data to, like, 3 different systems. You know what I mean? So to do something like that, what you would need to use is something like an external function, execute external function. So basically, this basically executes a function uh, as a standalone, right? So I can just reference my return number function. I can pass in whatever parameter for, right? And I'm just going to add a step, and I'm just going to return text. It works. Save this. I'm going to deploy. gonna ping Postman. All right, I get my response, it works. So basically what's happening here is that this function just runs at the first step. It runs, independent of the overall function, right? So let's say you had, three, four, five, six different functions that you would like to run in a function. You could basically just add these functions as independent executional steps, and they will all run, and they will all run in their own context, right? So this is also useful when you're trying to do like big data operations. So let's say you were trying to like run multiple database queries on a front end application. And, because of the in-house function builder executes step by step. So if you were to run a database operation on one step and run a separate database operation in a separate step, the first operation will have to run before the second one runs, right? You would have to return before the second one returns. But if you were to, let's say, segment your queries into different functions that all, let's say, set app data, you could run all your functions as independent, isolated functions, and they will all trigger at the same time, right? This is a much more complex concept. But basically, functions run as individual steps. If you want to, if you do not want your functions to run in sequence and you want them to run in an asynchronous manner at the same time, right? You could also use the external execute external function uh, step. All right. And there it is. This is basically how to use functions in functions. There are two ways. You could use functions within your logic using the script user interface, or you can run functions independent or in isolated from your main function by using the execute external function. You can pass in context into this function, and this context could be based on your current function, right? So I can add in a parameter that exists within my function. So maybe I can use like one of my parameters, in this case sample, and I could pass it. So you could use a parent function to get parameters, and you could pass off those parameters into different child functions that did different things. And this is perfect for uh, large data operations in web applications. This is perfect for communicating with different systems within an API or within a function, right? Let's say user events that trigger other events or automations. The use cases are endless, and it's up to you to pick and choose how you want to use your functions within functions. The overall the I guess the final thing to say is that this just enables you to write functions and reuse your functions without having to always rewrite. All right. With that, I'm going to end this video. I'll catch you in the next video.